The battle over abortion rights. Today, the Supreme Court agreed to speed up their review of that controversial Texas law banning most abortions in the state. But the High Court also refused to block the law while it's under judicial review. So to help us unpack this, we bring in ABC News contributor and Cardozo Law School professor Kate Shaw. Kate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me tonight.
So first off, what does this mean for Texas women seeking abortion services right now? And what can we sort of read into this court's current position?
Well, because the court didn't actually block the Texas law, it agreed to hear arguments about the law on November 1st, but it didn't block the law right now. So on the ground in Texas, there's no change in access to abortion. As you said in the introduction, access to abortion has basically ground to a halt as a result of this law, which is almost 2 months now been in effect. So no change on the ground, but there is now, for the first time, a real possibility that the Supreme Court will potentially invalidate the law or at least allow challenges to it to proceed. So far, because of the way this law is designed, remember, it's not enforced by the state. It's private parties who can sue for bounties, essentially, if they believe someone has obtained an abortion. Because that's the way the law works, it's not clear how you sue to challenge it, and it's not clear who a court can tell that the Constitution requires them not to, act consistent with the law. So there are complicated questions about how to challenge the law that has prevented the Supreme Court so far from actually reaching the question of whether this law is permissible. So for the first time, we're going to have arguments in the Supreme Court, again, on November 1st, basically mostly on this threshold question of who can come to court and who the right defendants are. So abortion itself, the future of Roe, is not going to be squarely at issue in the argument on November 1st, but it is very much lurking in the background of this case.
And tell us about those strong words that we heard from Justice Sonia Sotomayors in her dissent.
Right. So Justice Sotomayor agreed with the majority of the court that it's correct for the court to take the case to hear arguments on November 1st, but she vehemently disagreed with the decision not to put the law on hold in the meantime. She basically said that Texas has already, with the court's essentially blessing, committed irreparable harm by essentially denying abortion access to most of the women in the state, access that is protected by the Constitution under current law, whatever the future might hold under this court. And that, again, the Supreme Court has been a participant in blocking access to abortion for most women in Texas, of course, the second most populous state in the country. And she said, basically, even if the court decides, look, this Texas law, it won't go so far as to strike the law down in its ruling based on the November 1st argument. But even if the court clears a path to the law being invalidated, then it's still going to be too late for many women who have been prevented from exercising their constitutional right to abortion just for the 2 months the law has been in effect. So she was, she took very strong issue with the court's refusal to block the law in the short term. I do think it's notable, though, that the other liberal justices on the court did not join those strong words. So she wasn't joined by Justice Elena Kagan or Justice Stephen Breyer or Chief Justice Roberts, all of whom believed that the court should have stepped in to block the law before it went into effect. Now, maybe it's because Justice Sotomayor's words were very strong and her colleagues didn't want to sign on to them, but maybe it's because they think there's a chance there could be a fifth vote and to actually allow these challenges to proceed. And they are concerned about alienating colleagues. So it's possible to read Justice Sotomayor's sole dissent here as sending a signal that some of the justices' votes may be in play. Whether or not they're ultimately going to affirm the constitutional right to abortion, they may believe that Texas cannot be permitted to regulate a constitutional right in this way by allowing private parties basically to sue individuals for exercising constitutional rights.
You touched on timing a little bit, but do you have any idea when we could actually get a ruling on this case that seems very far-reaching right now?
Well, so the court has acted unusually expeditiously in scheduling arguments for November 1st, right? Just 10 days from now. Typically, the court will take a case and hear it months later and then, consider it for months and then issue a written opinion. I think there's some indication that because they scheduled the oral argument so quickly, they might actually resolve the case very quickly as well. So we could, hear more as soon as early November or into early December. The additional sort of timing wrinkle is that on December 1st, the court is scheduled to hear a challenge to another abortion restriction, this one out of Mississippi, and this one a more conventional kind of abortion restriction, one that bans abortions after 15 weeks and empowers state officials to enforce the ban rather than, again, giving private parties this power to sue. So that case squarely asks the court to overrule Roe versus Wade. I think there's a real chance the court will accept that invitation and overrule or at least dramatically narrow the constitutional protection for abortion. So that's happening anyway. So the real question is what happens around this Texas law in the meantime. But I think that, there's good reason to believe the court might resolve this Texas case, let the lower courts actually hear the substantive challenge about the constitutionality of the law if the Supreme Court just lets these challenges go forward. And then, the real question will be what the Supreme Court will do with this Mississippi case. Is it going to take the invitation? Again, it's been asked directly to overrule Roe. Is this, newly constituted, quite conservative court going to accept that invitation and actually overrule Roe? I think there's a real chance the answer is yes, or at least to dramatically narrow Roe.
Okay, Kate Shaw, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.